welcome to my podcast, the Jada Bell Podcast, the Jada Bell Podcast, Jada Bell Podcast, the Jada Bell Podcast. It's the Jada Bell Podcast.
The left has been so successfully able to hijack women's emotions and use them as political tools. And I think feminism has actually made women more susceptible to emotional manipulation because we don't have the space for masculine men to help protect our emotions, because men's anger can be hijacked very easily and women's compassion can be hijacked very easily. And I think the left has really been able to do that with the issue of abortion.
I think so too. You take a man out and then you can be easily more influenced when it's not just the man taken out, but you're by yourself. You don't have another party there thinking for you.
Yes, because that's what the sexual revolution did. It removed the man from the equation. It moved the government, especially with the enlargement of the welfare state in the 60s. It took the husband out of the picture. It said, well, in the 60s, actually, a lot of things happened to the relationship between men and women, and a lot of people don't like to identify it. So what happened in the 60s is the civil rights movement happened, great. The sexual revolution started happening. Birth control and contraception was widely available and a lot of times over the counter between the 60s and 70s. And also academia started gaining so much more prominence and women started going into academia. So a lot of things were happening during the 1960s and 70s. And what that's done is it's changed the relationship between men and women absolutely forever. Because now women and men are told by the feminists that they can relate to sex in the very same way, that they have the same consequences of that, right? But that's not true.
Not at all.
Women have different consequences to what they say is casual sex, even though sex is never casual. And that men are now given the free rein to just leave because women can just either have birth control pill or a Plan B pill or an abortion if they don't take care of it soon enough, essentially. Then the government steps in and says, you know what, actually, I'm even going to subsidize your lifestyle and I'm going to put you on food stamps and I'm going to take care of you.
Like I'm the daddy.
I'm your dad.
I'm your daddy now.
I'm your baby daddy. So the government came in the 60s and 70s and said, you know what, I'm the man of this house. You listen to me. And women are very influenced by the men that they're around. Traditionally, married women vote conservative or Republican much more often than unmarried single women. That's because women are so deeply influenced by the men and the logic of the men that they are around that, and we understand this. We understand that women are social creatures, so they're more susceptible to manipulation and also being highly agreeable in their traits typically. Meaning wanting to please people, wanting to socialize, wanting to find harmony faster than finding conflict. And that's a good thing. That's a really good thing that women, can do. We just can't let it be hijacked and manipulated. And a protection against that is having a strong man who can always seek direction, see through the BS, essentially, and not allow propaganda to come into the household and also not to seep in so deeply to a woman's brain that she goes kind of haywire. Did you know that most Democrat female voters who are 25 or older, who are employed, most of them have cats, like J.D. Vance said, but a solid majority, I think up to 40% of them self-proclaim that they have severe mental illness, depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, hopelessness, misery, all these different kinds of mental illnesses. And you have to think, well, maybe men and women do need each other. I always say, feminists have that famous quote, a man needs a woman like a fish needs a bicycle. I say, well, this fish needs a bicycle.
Oh,
because they try and say men and women don't need each other at all, and they have no relation, and there's nothing that they need from each other ever, ever, ever. But that's just not true. That is such again, unreality. It's not reality that men and women can live apart from each other. Having a strong man is the best thing that a woman can do. And also, can we talk about the fact that marriage is the best thing to ever happen to women?
Yeah, it is.
Monogamy
protects you.
Totally protects women, because all civilizations that have not been Christian-led before the, expansion of Western civilization over the last 5,000 years, lots of tribal cultures, what happens is there is an unequal distribution of men to women. What does that mean? The strongest man gets all the women. Therefore, there are a bunch of other men who are not as strong who don't get the women. They don't get a wife. They don't get someone that is completely loyal to them. So what that creates is this tribal system that is very unstable, that so many different women are treated badly in that system because they're owned technically by the strong men. And then you have these other warlike men who are not settling down, and they're just going to war all the time. So it's a very unstable sort of system.
Mm.
But then, of course, Western civilization and the Bible comes along and says, no, we want the distribution to be one man to one woman, and they should be committed to each other for the long haul. Why? Because raising children is super important. What does that do? That gives every woman a man who is commanded to love her and protect her and cherish her. And she is told that she should at least be kind and respectful to her husband. And apparently that's like a big problem nowadays.
Right.
But finally, you have an institution that protects women. Polygamy doesn't protect women. Tribalism doesn't protect women.
Yeah.
Nothing except monogamy actually protects and upholds feminine virtues and values.
Yeah.
Which of course is in line with the Bible. It's amazing how God's systems always work best for us.
Yeah.
We still reject them somehow.
Right. And just to add to that, it's what my main right now, my main topic on my platform is about submission to a man, but the beauty in that. Like I was struggling with mental health issues, and I talked about it when years ago, I was diagnosed with paranoia, schizophrenia, and BPD. Now my mind was going through it. But I left the female psychologist and went to a male psychologist. And it radically changed the course of where I went after that. Not only that, but then submitting to my husband's leadership who follows God, and no longer being around people that just don't hold me accountable and feed into my emotions. So that's what you're doing. Like I kind of vocalize it of like, even with feminism, it's like live in your emotions. So if what makes you happy, whatever you feel, right? And my husband kind of put a sword to that of like, no, you have to do what's morally right and what God says to do. But also the male psychologist, he said, you don't have these things. You're just from 10 to you go from 10 to like just go back to 1,
No
right?
kidding.
And I was like, that's not what the female would have said, or the females they coddle so much, and the man's like, no, we just need to take it from a 10 to a 2. You know what I'm saying? You have to hold yourself accountable with how you react. And I was like, dang. So not only that, just going back to what you said with these women having all these mental health issues, they're also just surrounded by women who they're really great at,
or effeminate men.
Yeah. That are like, was I feel exactly. And this is what I look at it as. I'm gonna be extreme with this. I think women, if you're on your deathbed, they'll do a really great job at making you as comfortable as possible while you're dying. Like they'll do a really great job at making sure you're not in so much agony, pain, and they can, help soothe that. But a man can come in, and I think with their direction, with my experience, is they can really come in and cure it, like truthfully. So I think that what feminism has done too is like by removing the man, but also women are no longer listening to them. They're walking into their own destruction of their mind.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was so, because as soon as I just turned the direction of like, let me see what men are talking about, and then boom, all of a sudden clarity, mood stabilized, no longer paranoia and all this fear, because what paranoia is just a bunch of fear in my mind, and my emotions are telling me what's going on in my head, which is why I learned after that that what people normalize of like, this is how I feel, so this is what I am. I said no, because I was feeling a lot of things back then, and that wasn't reality. So if I kept moving off of that, that I can't go out into the world and just say that's what it is.
That's really fascinating too, because that's a real life example of how feminism has created a selectively accountable culture where it only wants to ever hold men accountable for everything, for all the pitfalls of women, for all the hysteria that women can talk themselves into. Feminism says, no, all of that is completely justified. Because why? It feels good. It feels better. Accountability is basically the antithesis of feminism. And I also think that masculinity represents accountability. A lot of times in male-dominated spaces, there's a lot of accountability. But whereas women-dominated spaces, you bend the rules, you allow certain things to go past, and you allow a lot more inefficiency because of the emotions to take place. And while that's great in some aspects when it's complemented with masculinity, because I don't want people to get the vibe that we're just dogging on femininity.
Right.
We're dogging on the fact that feminism doesn't hold people accountable and doesn't ever protect women's actual mental stability. It just encourages mental instability because feminism profits off of that mental
It does.
instability. But hyper femininity and hyper masculinity go together, but there are also toxic versions of of femininity. Like toxic femininity really does exist, and feminism doesn't allow us to talk about that.
Mhm.
All the places where femininity can get hijacked are where masculinity needs to come back in and restabilize.
Love it. Love that. So we're already gonna go on to then the feminism stuff. So you kind of already shared, but you have a book coming out called The 100
100
Ways
Ways
Feminism.
Feminism is a Failure.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you for that. I'm very excited to read that because, like you have even stated, I found very little books. There was one and I listened to the audio. It was really good. But it was like, yeah, just one or two that's on there, and they really don't want that pushed out. I feel like because I just typed in just like, you know, bad things about feminism, and then it'll just pop up how feminism, like, be a feminist. So I'm just like, that's
Mhm.
not what I was searching for. Like, I just need to know the negatives before you just walk in and claim something. And then I don't know if you've ever watched, I'm going off track, but I don't know if you ever watched a panel. Well, this is where I was like, what? Okay, so my walk with this was like, I was watching a video and they were saying they're feminists. It was a panel for feminists. They all had different definitions of it.
Yes.
Why isn't there one? Like, why is this a
Yes.
whole bunch of different stuff? And it was just the most hilarious thing because they'll put in like a big word right before it, and I'll be like, what does that mean? And then you're fighting for women to have these to protect women, but then that same woman will say, but a man can come into my bathroom.
Yes.
And I was like, so how am I not? So if my idea of a feminist is saying that I don't want that, how am I against, like, how we should be on the same
Who's more
page?
feminist when you're fighting against that and someone's fighting for it?
Yeah.
In my book, we actually outline 4 different types of feminism. There's androgynous feminism, and these are general categories. There's supremacist feminists, or we call them androgynous feminists, supremacist feminists, say that fast 10 times.
Yeah, for real.
Trans exclusionary radical feminists, which are called TERFs, and sexual feminists. So after the second wave where feminism became increasingly militant and academic, like permeating in academia and getting into the workforce and more common society, not just on the fringes of political activism. Um, you saw feminism basically just begin to splinter, just like when our hair gets too long and you just get all these split ends. Like that was literally the growth of feminism because you had one branch of feminists, the androgynous feminists, saying there is actually no difference between men and women. In fact, women should wear shoulder pads and bind their chests and look manly. They should look androgynous because if they can tell that I'm a woman, then they're going to discriminate against me. Therefore, we should push for no difference between men and women. And out of that movement came abortion, a lot of abortion, because um, if men don't have the consequences of sex, aka carrying a pregnancy, that women do, then men and women are inherently unequal. And by the way, Ruth Bader Ginsburg literally believed that men and women were unequal because women have the ability to have children. She
Mhm.
truly believed that abortion was the only equalizer between men and women, which is so crazy to me. So she actually
Wow.
believed that women, as they were, as God created them, were completely unequal to men, and we needed a law or a series of laws in place to make women equal to men, which I find is so wild.
Wow.
All that to say, so you had the androgynous feminist, okay? Next, you had the supremacist feminists
Mhm.
who believed that because men were aggressive and because men were in charge of the levers of power, kind of in that Marxist mindset of men are powerful, women are the victims, that men are the oppressors, women are the oppressed. Therefore, women should take over every male institution, dominate over every man, and replace every man. And you will find the extreme of this women like Sally Miller Gearhart, who was a science fiction writer but also a radical feminist activist, advocating for gender selective abortions against men. She said it should be okay that if you find out you're having a baby boy, you should be given the option to abort. And she also said that we should reduce the population of men to 10% of what it is.
Wow.
Crazy. Supremacist feminist is, I
Very
think, the most dangerous.
angry.
So,
Yeah.
so evil and angry. Again, it always boils down to ending human life. Then you have the trans exclusionary radical feminists, okay? And these ones are radical feminists, so they kind of believe in that same Marxist structure, but they don't believe that men can become women. Because the androgynous feminists are like, well, there's no difference between men and women, so therefore men are women and women are men, right? That's like transgenderism's basic premise. But then you have these radical feminists who are like, no, that's not right. We don't want that, but they're still as militant and radical as the Marxist supremacist feminists. Okay, I hope I'm not getting too confusing
Oh,
here.
you're on the split ends. I love
Yeah.
it.
So then finally, you have the sexual feminists who really kind of started coming around the 80s and 90s, who are like, I'm going to lean into my sexual power as a woman. I'm going to exploit men with my body parts. I am going to offer them my body parts. These are the ones who are probably the OnlyFans models today, who think that the only form of empowerment is how many men you can sleep with and how you can use your femininity to scorn them. So just out of those 4 very general examples of how feminism has manifested in our culture today, you see that there are deep, ideologically profound differences between the 4 branches. You have some that believe that men and women are the same. Some believe that women are better than men or should be replacing men. You have the next one that believes that men and women are not interchangeable, but women should replace men. Then you have another one that believes that women should lean into their sexual power and use that to get what they want.
Which I've seen all 4 of these in different manifests in different ways. That was a
Right.
really great way of breaking that down. And all of these things are so that's all so toxic.
All of it.
And it's not even true. If you want to, and I had to actually dissect. And thank you for that, because then you can go based on each one of it and dissect how it's not even of God.
Yes.
Like that's
and the
not
cultural consequences of each of them have been very dire.
Yes. Yeah. And now you have, I mean, we could get into so much stuff. Because
We
I was
need
about to
6
say,
more hours.
no, oh my gosh, I don't even want to get so off track. So I want to just throw in some crazy controversial things for clickbaiting or whatever, right? So what are your thoughts on the 4B movement that's happening right now?
The what?
4B movement.
What is that?
You don't know what that is?
I think I do, but
So after the
define it.
election, women feminists, like your branches, all decided to collectively come together and join the 4B movement, where they were going to shave their heads. I guess this came from,
Oh, like choosing to be abstinent?
yeah, which is so rude, because they're saying if I'm bald, I'm not attractive to men, which is rude
Which is
to the
also
women.
true.
Yeah, and that's true, but
That's correct.
for the women that have cancer and all this other stuff that aren't even that were actually feminists, and then said, you know what, screw y'all, that's rude as hell. Like, you're not even being thoughtful to me. It's just interesting how they get themselves into a pickle with that one. But yeah, so basically they wear bracelets, blue bracelets, so that they know how to identify each other. Sounds like a cult. Just saying, sounds like a cult.
Mm.
And they shaved their heads off. Yeah. So what are your thoughts, if you have heard about it, of Orby movie?
I didn't realize it had an official name.
Yeah, they got to add that to your list.
Yeah, shoot. It's just virtue signaling. Virtue signaling is the most feminine cultural thing that you can do, because it is a sign of solidarity to accomplish what? What are you going to accomplish?
Mhm. Yeah.
You're not accomplishing anything. In fact, you are making yourself more ostracized from society, because now you've shaved your head with the intent to look ugly. You subscribe to this radical hyper-feminist ideology. You have essentially told every person that voted for Trump, I want to have nothing to do with you.
Yeah, they did do that.
You've also established that abortion is probably one of your most prioritized issues in politics ever. And not that men were going to sleep with you anyway, and you shouldn't be engaging in sex outside of marriage,
Yeah.
but you are claiming abstinence as a punishment to men who
Thank
wouldn't
God.
be sleeping with you anyway. Like, good for you on that part.
That's all
I
we
guess.
wanted, right? That's what the pro-life wanted.
Now you're accomplishing exactly what we wanted you to accomplish, but on your own choice, which is great. I'm proud of you for that. But it's mental illness. I think any woman who shaves her head in protest of anything should be checked up mentally, because long hair is a sign of youthfulness and a sign of beauty. It's a sign of fertility, because you got to have healthy hair. You got to be healthy to have healthy hair.
Mm.
And so women who are actively shaving their heads and or growing their armpit hair out at the same time should definitely be mentally checked. Because women want to be beautiful.
Yeah.
Don't
That's so
don't
funny.
let feminism tell you that you don't want to be beautiful and that you don't care about beauty and you don't care how you look.
Yeah.
Don't fall into vanity, but don't deny that as a woman you want to feel beautiful. That's okay.
Yeah.
And women who are actively destroying that and pushing that part of themselves down. Sorry, let me say that again. Pushing that part of themselves down. That's so self-destructive and
Mhm.
should not be allowed or encouraged ever.
Yeah. It's actually it's really sad because we have these expectations of men to work out and be over 6 foot and do all of these things, but then turn it back around of like, okay, we should be physically fit. We should take care of ourselves, things like that. You have these feminists that's like, I'm never going to do that for a man. He just accept me for how I am. And I just think one of the beautiful things, and this is little to some feminists might be controversial, but I think it's beautiful to want to look good for your man and to
Yeah.
want to be,
Yeah, because feminine women inherently understand that the only thing that can inspire masculinity is femininity.
yeah,
Feminist women believe that the only way they can inspire men to do anything is by screaming at them, nagging them, passing more laws, bringing them to HR one more time because they smiled at the woman,
yeah,
right?
yeah, agreed.
Yeah, femininity is the way that you inspire masculinity, and that's the only way that it works. And masculinity, of course, inspires femininity, but yelling at a man to be, the right way, the way that you perceive him should to be will never work.
If you look aside, it's literally what men are doing. They're courting you. They're not using their dominance. I mean, there are some bad ones,
Yeah.
right? But majority of men are just courting you and trying to show like you can trust me and stuff like that. And women also I've learned that they use a part of the brain of do I feel safe with you before they have sex with, which going back to what you said, there's different consequences, but also we're different
Mhm.
wiring because men aren't thinking, am I safe with you?
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't want to call them predators at all, but they're just a more dominant species. God,
Mhm.
that's going to trigger some people. My
Yeah,
gosh. But
yes.
when you look at it like that, when I was thinking about that, or just how much women are going after men
Mhm.
today, it's almost like, yeah,
Because feminists will always submit to a boss. They don't wanna
just like
submit
my
to the
bunnies.
Yeah, they
You
don't wanna
can't
submit
live.
to their husband,
Yeah.
and God forbid they submit to a husband. But if that boss needs some Starbucks coffee, cream and sugar,
Yeah.
it's always the highest person on their food chain who they will submit to most.
Yeah. I think what women are struggling with today, and this is why I talk so much about it, and this is why I use triggering words, because it's like get over it on my page, right? Is that we're equal in value for sure.
Yeah.
You know, we both have very big positions, but you need a man to even have certain things in place. For example, I heard this story about how in the Middle East, the America went over there and built a school. Now, this is a story I heard. Um, and they built a school and then they put guards around the school. And then when the US was done with whatever contract they had over there, they took their soldiers back with them and left the Middle Eastern soldiers. Well, there was a group coming after to attack them because they were like, "Oh, we hate that there's a school here for girls." Well, the guards around was like, "You know what? We could just leave. We literally could just leave. Why am I getting killed for this?" So they left. And then what did they do? They bombed the whole school, which means you do need men to protect women. Like, you
Yes.
need that. Like, those women couldn't really defend themselves against all these grown men that were coming after to take this
Yes.
down. So,
That's why I'm so annoyed with superhero movies that have these 5 to 90-pound women, like, flipping these huge Russian guys
you can
over.
see it too that it was so fake. Like, they're
It's
like, oh, they're
Yeah.
waiting for you to throw the
And
punch.
not that I'm saying that a actual 5'2" woman would think that she can do that, but it gives women the false impression that they are stronger physically than they are. Feminism believes that men are the oppressors and women are the oppressed because of men's perceived dominance, not only in the workforce, but in just all walks of life.
This was laid out perfectly for me. If we were to get invaded tomorrow by a bunch of men from like Russia comes over here, you would find your feminism would be out the window. You're
In
looking
an
for the
instant.
strongest man near you, and you're just hoping that they will protect and shield
Or
you.
shoot, if you just go to New York, you'll be wanting the strongest man around you because it is a dangerous, dangerous city.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, so, so moving on from that, this was great. So, um, There are also critics, but I see that there's flaws in the feminist movement, and we have been talking about that, but I just want some of your thoughts on a few that I have listed here from critics, from other people, but also even myself, is that it's interesting that feminist movement is for women, right? But feminism has created division between women because now there's a division between conservative women and then just the ones that are what we're talking about right now. I need my man. But there you will get so much hate flooded under your comments. Oh my gosh, I'm called a pick me. This is a new term.
Yes.
They took off TikTok, which
You
is
should
crazy.
say, yes, he did pick me and his name is my husband.
Yes, thank you.
It's actually totally a side note. When I get engaged, probably soon. In fact, I
Yeah.
think by the time this episode is posted, I have a theory that I will be either 24 hours from getting engaged or engaged, okay?
Okay.
My caption for the post is going to be, he did pick me.
Beautiful.
Just leaning
Perfect.
into it because that's what romance is about, and women love romance. Why do you sit there
And watch romance
crying,
movies.
watching The Notebook over and over again? It's because he didn't pick you.
This is what she goes viral for, by the way, you guys. She is she will say it to the truth, okay?
He'll
But
pick
I
me.
love that. And you know what? I did a video that went viral where I was like, all the women in my comments called me a pick me, and I was running around a house, this big beautiful mansion, because we were looking at houses. It's not my house, but just for anybody watching
That's
this. But
awesome.
we were looking at homes. And I was running around it like crying in this beautiful house that we're,
That my
looking
husband
at.
provided for me.
Yeah, exactly.
In my beautiful car that my
Yeah.
husband provided for me. With my beautiful jewelry, all of my
I
makeup
can't
that my
believe
husband
it.
provided. Like,
Yeah.
it's just ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. And I think just like men are, you know, going out there and they're working out and they're trying to get their mental health right. They're trying to make sure they're the right man. They're this masculine man that women are asking that they really desperately need, and they want to be that for their woman. So should women be for their man. It's just that simple. I think it's very narcissistic. So yes, that's a mental illness. You are a narcissist for thinking the world revolves around you and you don't have to do any change. And to say that he should accept me for who I am is a narcissist. I said that before when I got married. This is why I love Christianity. And although I just recently sat down with a Muslim, and I liked his perspective on like we shouldn't have so much war against each other and stuff like that. The thing with Christianity and the thing with Jesus's resurrection is it models marriage perfectly.
Yes.
Like his whole entire resurrection, you can't take that out. If you can't take that out, that's the whole point. I feel like that's the whole point of living is like he died for me. And also marriage is exactly what Jesus went through. You're dying to yourself. You're going to be put up on a cross. You're going to be resurrected. You're going to be made new because once you come out of this, when you go into a marriage, you're walking up to an altar. You're basically doing the same thing. And then the first 2 years of marriage is, people say it's terrible. But if you guys are equally yoked, I feel like it's easier. But moving forward, is that you're becoming one. Like you're meshing as one and you become a new person in the mind. I don't even remember how I used to think before. People try to bring up my past and I'll be like, I don't know that person.
I don't remember her.
I wasn't married back then. My husband and me, we made new. So moving forward though, so you have the division that there is a war between women that love their man and the women that are feminist. So it's actually caused a division where we're not even accepting of people with their values. Now, go ahead, sorry.
You're
Any
good. No, you'll never find that. So feminists are screaming about how women should be in power. Okay, well, the incoming Trump administration, the chief of staff of the White House is a woman, or is going to be a woman. First time in history. He is appointing Tulsi Gabbard to be, I think, Secretary of Homeland Security.
Which
He
is good.
is elevating Tudor Dixon to also be part of the administration. He has more women that he has surrounded himself with. Laura Trump, his daughter-in-law, is the head of the RNC. His primary lawyer for and spokesperson for his campaign is a gorgeous woman.
I seen her. She's fiery.
Yeah, she's
I like
gorgeous. Her. Donald Trump surrounds himself with strong, intelligent women. And people who are trying to claim that he wants to keep women down, it's just so absurd. He's always surrounded himself with women because he likes beautiful women. He likes beautiful things. He likes beautiful buildings. It's great. That's what makes him who he is. So people who scream about him being just so sexist and oppressive is just, it's so empty to me because we know it's not true. I would like to ask all the feminists who were crying at 3 a.m. on November 6th, I guess, because Donald Trump was gonna take away the rights. Well, what rights has he taken away?
Yeah. They're very quiet right now.
Yeah, so quiet.
I'm sure you regret going bald. You're going to when you see that the world has not changed.
Maybe when
Hopefully.
your hair grows back, we can have a civil conversation.
Yeah, this is crazy. That is crazy. It's so crazy how you can be it's really because of your if you see it was all women doing that. It was all women doing. So it let me know just like what you stated already in this that our emotions and our compassion, all this other stuff is also our biggest the way the enemy attacks us and gets
Mhm.
us. Because I see it like this too. Naturally, as a woman, when you see somebody that comes to you and says, I really feel like I'm a woman, if you have a trans person, I really feel like I'm a woman and I've gone through all these things in my life, you naturally just feel compassion. Like, I'll just accept you. Come here.
Yeah.
I'll just accept you for
But
how
you
I
should
are. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's where we've gone wrong with it, is that we're hugging things that actually do need therapy and it needs work, and we're trying to just make them, like I said, what women are good at, I noticed, is just like you could be on your deathbed, they'll make it a comfortable place, but you're dying. You're dying. This is not going to help you. It's not going
Mhm.
to save you. And that's when I went to a male psychologist. I really got saved. Like when I surround myself with like men and listening to men, it cured me. Um, Also, obviously, submitting myself to Jesus, but I see why God appointed men. I do. Like I see it. And I know that's again like what are you talking like I'm not saying I'm not of extreme I'm of such value that men they protect they this man said it like this. I don't give up my seat for my equal. It's because you're so special, like you're of value. Like as a man, I'm gonna give up my seat for a woman. If I'm on a train, there's no seats, and a woman walks in and she's pregnant or whatever, or just a woman, I'm gonna give up my seat for her. Why? Because you are of value. You are a treasure. And
The
so
healthiest, most masculine men always treasure women, and women who are the most feminine are women who have been treasured. And it's
wow.
such a beautiful thing if husbands can treasure their
Yes.
wives, treasure their girls.
You can know who's treated very well by how feminine they carry themselves. Yeah.
Yes, it's completely true because men, they will do so much for their women. I've literally had my could be fiance at the point that this episode is
Hey,
released.
she's giving you a hint. Okay.
Thanks.
Speed it up. I'm ready.
But he says to me, I've never felt this way before because I would do anything for you, which is so sweet. And he really would. Like, he would fix my whole entire house if it fell apart, which is so, so sweet. But I never want to abuse that he's given me. He's given me his heart. He trusts me. He always expects me to be uplifting, encouraging, tell him the truth, help him think through things, care for him in ways that I can as the girlfriend right now, soon hopefully to be wife. Um, but it's always the women who are treasured who can feel free and safe because women are only feminine when they feel safe. That's why I think it's so cool what the government has encouraged women to do and what society has encouraged women to do. It encourages women to stick up for themselves, reject a husband, go to work for 8 hours of the day, never get sunlight. You don't have time to go work out or eat, healthy food or God forbid, home cooked meals. You
Right.
don't have time to have peace and process things. You shouldn't want to prioritize your own beauty or making your home beautiful. You should actually just try and play this power domination game and only care about how much money you have in your bank account. That's what society at large encourages women to do.
Mhm.
What is that? Where does that put women? That puts women in a vulnerable place where they don't feel safe. They are not protected. They have no one to fall back on. They have no community around them. They're completely isolated.
Yeah.
They don't have the beautiful things that a community and a church community can really provide. They have no generational um, lineage to kind of tie them to reality, right? So feminism actively puts women in places where they feel unsafe. And then we wonder why those women are masculine and butch and their bodies look different and they're mean and aggressive and their faces after a long time start to go downward and
Mhm.
look angry and grumpy all the time. Like,
Yeah.
why does every woman have RBF? Well, because she is not in her femininity. It's not just because you're a Scorpio, and it's not just because, oh, that's just how I am.
Yeah.
Like, you have an RBF because you don't feel safe, you don't feel loved, you don't feel appreciated. You're probably leaning into feminism because it's telling you sweet little lies.
Yeah. That
And
men are the problem.
and men are the problem.
Yeah.
And how is that a good way to live for a woman whose true strength is found in her femininity? Feminism wants to remove women from their natural strength, which is their femininity, and it wants to remove men from their natural strength, which is their masculinity, by demonizing it and villainizing it.
Yeah. Agreed.
And so if you really want women to be empowered and you really want them to be powerful, then you would encourage them in their femininity. You
Yes.
wouldn't try and remove them from it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mhm.
We're
True.
realizing that women have not been held accountable. They haven't been holding good societal standards for a long time. Women have let themselves be used and abused by men, predatory men because of the sexual revolution, okay? So women are women are handed a society that just doesn't protect and encourage or treasure them in the way that women really should be.
Yeah.
And there's things we can do to change the system, but in totality, we want women to be feminine. We want women to be in stable and safe places where they can feel comfortable and safe and protected enough to be feminine. Because in that femininity, a woman has true, deep, resounding power. She has beauty and grace and goodness. A
Yes.
woman in her feminine is a reflection of God's heart that is beauty. And why would you want to remove yourself from that?
Yeah.
So I just want to implore anyone who's listening to this to be feminine and choose femininity, choose the warmth, choose the life, choose the beauty over any kind of, and really try and unravel that in your brain because it's not doing you any favors.